Have you ever watched the news and heard something like, the economy collapsed overnight, and thought, wait, how does that even happen? Like, this was a country with jobs, with businesses, with people going to work every single day, earning money, spending money. Everything looked fine. And then, boom, it falls apart. That's not a made up scenario. That's happened to real countries with real economies that looked completely healthy just months before their collapse. So today we're going to answer a question that most people never stop to think about. Why do even strong economies suddenly collapse? And more importantly, is there a pattern? Can we actually understand this? Or is it just chaos? Welcome to The Thinking Economist. Let's start with something that feels almost unfair. You'd think that if an economy is strong, if it's growing, if unemployment is low, if businesses are profitable, that it would just stay that way, right? Like, why would something that's working stop working? But here's what history tells us. Strong economies don't always stay strong. And some of them, the ones that looked the most stable, have collapsed suddenly, without warning. The United States in 2008, Japan in the early 1990s, Argentina, multiple times. These weren't weak economies. These were powerhouses, and they still fell. So clearly, strength alone doesn't protect you. There's something deeper going on. And to understand it, we need to zoom out a little. Here's the puzzle that economists have been trying to explain for over 100 years. Picture this. Everything looks great. Jobs are being created. Businesses are opening new locations, hiring more staff, making more products. Consumer confidence is high, meaning people feel good about their financial situation, so they're spending freely. And then something shifts. It might be small at first. Maybe a few companies start laying off workers. Maybe housing prices start to dip. Maybe people start feeling just a little bit nervous. And they pull back on spending. And here's where it gets interesting. That nervousness, that hesitation, can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. People expect things to get worse, so they act like things are worse. And because they act like things are worse, things actually get worse. This is the puzzle, not a natural disaster, not a war, though those can trigger it. Sometimes the collapse comes from within, from the psychology of millions of people making individual decisions that add up to something enormous. So here's the core idea that ties everything together. And once you understand this, you'll see the world differently. Economies don't grow in a straight line. They never have, and they never will. Instead, they move in cycles, up and down, expand and contract. Economists call this the business cycle, and it's one of the most fundamental concepts in all of economics. Think of it like the seasons, spring and summer. Things are growing, the weather is warm, everything feels abundant. Then autumn comes, then winter. And winter isn't a failure of the year. It's just part of how the year works. Economies are the same. The growth phase, when jobs are rising, businesses are expanding, incomes are going up. That's called an expansion. The decline phase, when things slow down, spending drops, unemployment rises, that's called a contraction. And if the contraction is severe enough and lasts long enough, it becomes a recession. Here's the critical thing, though. Expansions don't last forever, and neither do recessions. The cycle always continues. All right, so we know economies move in cycles, but what actually triggers the downturn? What pushes a healthy, growing economy off the edge? The answer, and this is the part that surprises most people, is that it often starts with something small. It could be a central bank raising interest rates, making it more expensive for businesses and individuals to borrow money. It could be a major bank or company failing, sending a wave of panic through financial markets. It could be a global event, like a pandemic or a war or an oil price spike, that disrupts supply chains and drives up costs. Or sometime, and this is fascinating, it's simply a loss of confidence. No dramatic event. Just people start to feel uncertain. They start spending a little less. Businesses notice slower sales and start investing a little less. And that hesitation, that slight pulling back, is enough to start the slide. So the trigger point has three main symptoms: reduced spending, falling confidence, and weaker investment. And once all three are happening at the same time, the economy starts to lose momentum very quickly. Now here's where it gets really important, because this is the part that explains why collapses feel so sudden, even when they've been building for a while. It's the domino effect. Once spending starts to fall, a chain reaction begins, and it goes like this. People spend less, so businesses earn less. Because businesses earn less, they can't afford to keep all their staff, so they cut jobs. Now more people are unemployed or worried about becoming unemployed, so they spend even less, which means businesses earn even less, which means more job cuts, which means it feeds itself. Each domino that falls knocks over the next one, and the speed at which this happens can be shocking, because modern economies are huge and interconnected. What starts in one corner of the economy ripples outward almost immediately. This is why a collapse can feel like it happened overnight, even though the dominoes were actually being lined up for months or even years before the first one fell. So why does it spread so fast once it starts? Why can't we just contain it to one area? Because modern economies are deeply connected in ways most people don't think about day to day. Let's say a major car manufacturer starts struggling. Sounds like a problem for one industry, right? But think about everyone who depends on that car company. The steel suppliers, the rubber manufacturers, the software companies building the car's tech, the dealerships, the mechanics, the advertising agencies, the towns where those factories are located, their restaurants, their schools, their local governments funded by tax revenue. One struggling company, and suddenly dozens of sectors are feeling the pressure. And each of those sectors has its own web of connections. A problem in one sector can spread across the entire system, quickly, quietly, and often before anyone in charge has even had a chance to react. But it's not all doom and gloom. Because here's the other side of the cycle. Economies recover. They always have. And the engine of recovery, at its core, is something very human. It's trust. When people start to feel confident again, when they believe the worst is over, they start spending again. Maybe not all at once, maybe just a little. But that spending reaches businesses who start earning more, who start investing again, who start hiring again. And just like the domino effect worked on the way down, it works on the way back up. Spending increases. Businesses invest. Jobs return. People feel more secure. So they spend more. And the cycle turns upward again. Governments and central banks also play a big role here, by cutting interest rates to encourage borrowing, or by spending on public projects to create jobs. But even with all of that, the real turning point always comes back to confidence, to people believing that things are going to get better. So, let's bring it all together. Economic collapse is not random. It's not some weird accident or mysterious force. It follows a pattern, a cycle, that economists have been studying and documenting for generations. Strong economies collapse because they're not immune to the business cycle. They can hit a trigger point, a loss of confidence, a financial shock, a global disruption. That trigger starts a domino chain. The domino chain spreads through a deeply connected system. And what looked like strength suddenly looks very fragile. But, and this is the part worth remembering, it is part of a cycle, not the end, just a phase. The same way winter is not the end of the year. A recession is not the end of an economy. Recovery comes. It always does. Understanding this doesn't make economic downturns painless. They affect real people in very real ways. But it does give us something powerful: perspective. And perspective is where good decisions come from. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more videos from The Thinking Economist. And feel free to reach out in the comments section with any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions. See you in the next one.